Welcome to the Faded Spade Podcast with your hosts, Tom Wheaton and Sean McCormick.
All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to the Faded Spade Podcast. My name is Tom Wheaton, founder and CEO of Faded Spade, with our always entertaining co-host, the poker boss, Sean McCormick, and our next guest, an awesome guest. You may have heard about this guest on our last podcast with Dave Richard from CBS Sports because he was drafted to Dave Richard's fantasy poker team. But our next guest is a professional poker player, a wildly successful poker vlogger on YouTube, co-creator of Mugs and so much more. We are here to hear his journey. Brad Owen, welcome to the Faded Spade Podcast, man.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me.
No problem, man. So did you know that we did a podcast with Dave Richard and we actually had him select five poker players for his fantasy poker team, and you were one of them?
I saw something on Twitter about that.
Yeah.
I was aware. Yeah, Dave, he's a cool guy. I met him out in Florida when we did a meetup game out there in July. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that may be the first fantasy poker team I've ever been drafted to.
Well, there you go, man. Well, I think we're going to work together this year to do like a CBS Fantasy Sports Faded Spade League. We'll invite like maybe 12 people into it. We're still working on the details, so we'll keep you in mind, man.
Very cool.
So, all right. You guys know the story and journey of the Faded Spade Podcast is to tell the untold story of influencers in the poker industry, of which obviously, Brad, you have become through a lot of hard work. And but first, before all that, we all know the situation we're in, right? We're all practicing social distancing. So what have you been doing with your time, man? I mean, you can't go to poker rooms anymore to film and et cetera, right? So what you been doing?
I've been enjoying my time. Andrew and I, we were traveling a ton, doing 2 or 3 meetup games across the country. And then we did one in London. And from there, I went to Spain for 8-a-day poker's main event out there. So, yeah, I kind of just needed a break. So I'm actually happy to be home, just relaxing, still making videos, playing poker online, and just trying to find ways to kill time. Been reading.
Yep.
And I've got a poker cat rap video coming out.
Oh, man.
The next couple days.
Oh, man. Well, this will be good timing because this will come out probably early next week. So it'll be a few days right after that video comes out. So that's cool, man. Poker cat rap. So what's your cat's name again?
So I have another one now. So I had one with my ex-girlfriend, and she kept the cat after we broke up. So that was pretty brutal. His name was Cosmo. Yeah. This new cat here, his name is Marvin. He's actually just on the other side of this computer. He doesn't go too far away from me usually these days.
That's all right. We have a cat in my family too, and it's made an appearance on the podcast a couple times, and Sean just starts laughing his ass at me, but whatever. It's the family. Let's do it, right?
Hey, I have a zoo in my house right now, so I can't say anything. Literally, I'm sitting on 2 dogs, 2 ferrets, and a cat right now. So it's pretty crazy in my household. You know, my wife, Brad, if you don't know, my wife's a teacher with children with special needs, and they keep ferrets in the classroom. But the schools are closed, so they needed a place to stay more permanently right now. So I'm like, yeah, just open it up. So, you know, we got a whole bunch of animals in the house right now. But it's, you know, animals always make it a blast for sure.
I've got 2 kids, and one will come in here, guaranteed. But that's all good. All right, so Brad, so for folks who are listening or watching, right, and quick promo, you can watch the Faded Spade podcast on YouTube, brand new YouTube channel. YouTube.com/Faded Spade, and obviously audio podcasts across pretty much any platform. So, Brad, what are your roots, man? Like, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And how'd you get into this crazy world of ours?
I'm from Northern California, about an hour north of San Francisco. And my dad was in the casino industry. He needed to learn all the casino games. So he took home this CD-ROM game called Hoyle Casino 2003. And every day after school, I would go and play that. I was probably, I guess I was, either a freshman or sophomore in high school. And, you know, Chris Moneymaker won the main event. That was all over television. I had always loved like board games and strategy games. I played a lot of poker with my brother in high school. He's 4 years older than me. So it was him and his college buddies. And I'd play against my dad. And then I started playing with my high school friends. And I just loved it right away. I was good at it. It was kind of the only thing I was able to beat my brother at the time. And so I just immediately loved it. And then I went to school in San Diego where you could play poker at 18 at the Native American properties. So I was playing 3-6 limit, 1-2 no limit. And then after college, I graduated in 2010 and I won a $100 satellite into the main event. And that kind of gave me the confidence to really pursue poker as a profession.
That's cool. So where did you win that?
I won it at a place called River Rock Casino. It's no longer there. Or they no longer have a poker room, at least. It's in Sonoma County in California.
Okay. And you said this was kind of right after college or during college?
Yeah, it was a few weeks after I graduated.
So what was that like? What was going through your mind? Like, oh shit, I'm going to play the World Series of Poker main event. Like what was that like for you?
It was nuts. So I graduated with an accounting degree in the middle of a recession. So I didn't get a job out of college. And I was really kind of panicking internally. I had no idea what I was going to do. So I entered the satellite. It was a $100 buy-in, and that was the biggest buy-in tournament that I'd ever played at that point, was $100. And so to win that and have the $10,000 main event be the first WSOP event that I've ever played, and for it to be 100 times bigger than my previous biggest buy-in was something that was just like a dream come true and insane to me at the same time.
Damn, man. All right. So how'd you do?
I was top 50 in chips for my flight on day one, which was awesome. And day two, I got boated by the second biggest stack at the table, and I was the first biggest stack. So I was pretty much decimated after that and busted shortly before dinner on day two.
Same thing to me. Like last year was my first ever. And thanks to shout out to our like 35 U-Stake backers. So thank you for that. But day two, right before dinner, bust out. And it was just like a sinking feeling. So what was that feeling like for you when you busted? Was it just like?
Yeah, it was deflating. I just felt like I let down a lot of people, and I replayed that hand in my head for so long after. I actually had nightmares about it.
Oh no! Sorry, I brought it up.
No. Okay, now, but yeah, at that point, it was just something that crushed me.
How about thinking back on it now?
Brad, let me ask you, because this is the stuff people really want to know.
Yeah.
When you busted or when you went boat over boat with this guy, and this guy now has a monster stack, please tell me he at least cashed. Do you even know the guy? Do you even remember?
He was this massive whale at the table. And the only reason that he had that many chips was because he got really, really lucky and got it in like terribly bad with a flush draw on the turn against somebody who had top set, and hit a spade to make a flush. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know how he did. Like, he was just playing like a maniac.
Usually what happens to me is I dump like a big stack to someone that not deserving of it. They usually got lucky or something on me. Yeah. And then like an hour later I look and they're walking out of the tournament. I'm like, they just punted my stack. Like, man, that's like the worst feeling in the world. And I'm like, man, I should have just walked out of the poker room.
I think we've all been there.
For sure.
All right, man. So take us back then. You bust, you're feeling shitty. I'm sure after that you started at least to feel like, damn, that was still a cool experience. So what happened next?
So that was in July of 2010. Right after that, I decided to just kind of take a risk and get an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 of my buddies. And we lived in San Francisco. Like, none of us, actually one of us had a job lined up, but we just took a shot, man. We were just hoping within the first month we would get jobs doing whatever to make it work. And luckily, within the week that I moved out to San Francisco, I got a job at my apartment complex. So I was leasing apartments full time, and I was playing as much as I could at Lucky Chances. I had developed kind of this false confidence that I was a really good poker player. And I was playing 2-5 at a full-time job, and I was making, $55,000 a year, which was a decent amount of money for me, being a 22-year-old. but living in the city, it doesn't really go that far. But I did have some extra money, and I was probably a break-even 2-5 player. But I met my buddy Check Raise Charles, who has a YouTube vlog as well. He was my first friend who was a professional poker player. So him and I would go over poker hands. About a year and a half later, I'd won some other small tournaments for like $1,000 and $1,500, and decided I would take a shot at playing for a living. So I moved out to Las Vegas. I lived in Check Raise Charles' house, played here for about 6 months at Red Rock a lot. That was my go-to spot, and was making $3,000 or $4,000 a month. Living expenses were minimal. I probably had like $1,000 a month in expenses. So I was able to save up a little bit. My girlfriend at the time lived in Orange County, so I moved to LA after that, and I just got smoked in LA, making all the mistakes that you can make, just playing too big. My expenses were way more than they were in Las Vegas, and just bankroll was not where it needed to be playing predominantly 5-10, and just went on a bad run, got stressed, started playing bad, went broke, had to move back in with my parents at 24. So not a good time for me.
I understand, man. So one thing you said that I can really appreciate was you said something about false confidence. Like you had false confidence that you were good, right? Yeah. So talk to people who are kind of hearing this right now about what you mean by false confidence and how they can kind of look for it in themselves.
It's so hard to spot it in yourself. I see it all the time with people who are newer to the game, even people who are pretty good. They book some nice wins. Maybe they win a tournament and they think they're one of the best in the world, but didn't really put in the time studying, don't really have the experience to avoid pitfalls in poker in general, especially as a professional. There's so many traps that you can get into, whether it be bankroll management or playing in the pits, or a variety of other things. So yeah, I just really didn't put in all the work to be a top player, and I had some success in poker, so I just thought I was a lot better than I was.
Got it. I hear you. I've been there. God, when Florida poker, hit hard in, I think, the mid 2000s, like the first 2 years, I wasn't very good. I was like an ABC player, but I was winning, right? Mm-hmm. But then like a few years later, it was like, oh, I'm not that good. And you have to put in the work. You have to study. You have to get better. You have to understand your leaks. Right, Sean? I mean, otherwise, and you see this every day as a poker room operator, I'm sure. What advice, Sean, would you have as a poker room operator to people who might be in that place of, thinking they're really good, but develop maybe a false confidence? And what would you advise them to kind of do to really look into their game?
Well, I mean, Brad hit it perfectly when he said it's hard to see it in yourself. Mm-hmm. And people really need to listen to those words, and not just listen to them, heed those words and actually act on them. That's why a lot of successful players these days work in these groups and conglomerates of players on top of players, so that you can kind of check yourself against your friends and say, hey, I played this X way. Do you think I should have played it a different way? Blah, blah, blah. And that's how these players get better, because it's really hard to look at yourself and find your own leaks. It's because you think you're the best, especially if you've made that one big score or one huge score or got lucky. Everybody gets lucky. The casinos are built on people getting lucky, but they're more built on people getting unlucky, as we know. Or the variance, the numbers playing out. Luck can only take you so far, especially in our game.
I love it, man. All right, Brad. So you're in your mid-20s. You're like, crap, I got to move back in with the parents, right? Which, hey, at that time, I remember a lot of people had to do that. Shit, I'm a little bit older than you, but I lost my job at that time too. So it's just the way it was. So walk us through your mindset when that happened, and then, what path you took from there.
Just really just the lowest point in my life. My parents really didn't want me to pursue poker as a profession. My dad, being in the casino industry earlier on in my life, he saw, a lot of people lose their life savings, and didn't want me to go down that path. There weren't really a lot of success stories that he knew about in the gambling world. So I moved back in with my parents. My mom, one of the first things she says to me is, so Brad, are you still glad that you pursued poker as a profession? Just to really rub it in and be like, I was right. Time. And at that point, I was taken aback by it a little bit. And I said, I think it's too early to tell. I don't know how this is going to affect my life in the future. And you're going to have to ask me again in 10 years from now, and I'll have a better answer. Mm-hmm. And I'm really glad that I did take that shot. It's not easy playing poker for a living. And, most people do end up going broke at some point, and it's all a matter of how you bounce back. And what I had to do, luckily I had the support system of my parents. I had somewhere to go where I didn't have to pay rent for a while, and I could get back up on my feet. So I actually studied for the CPA exams because I had that accounting degree that I did nothing with. And I passed all the CPA exams within 4 months, which is kind of like the fastest you can do it, basically. I realized that accounting firms didn't hire anybody except for they only recruited from colleges. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it was maybe July, and I was looking into master's programs for accounting, and UNLV was pretty much the only program still accepting students. So for me, it was a no-brainer to come back to Las Vegas, go to UNLV. It was a year-long program, and the program was all review. It just helps you prepare for the CPA exam. So it's pretty easy for me, and I spent a lot of time playing poker, building up the bankroll again. After I graduated in May of 2014, I worked for an accounting firm for a year, and that was just like the most soul-crushing thing that I'd ever done. So I went back to poker in September of 2015, and I've been playing for a living since then. It's gone well, and started the blog in 2016, at the end of 2016.
There we go. So I can understand about the accounting world. I'm not an accountant, but a couple really good friends of mine have actually switched from accounting to like international business or marketing when they were going through college, and then 2 or 3 years out because they got the jobs at like EY or et cetera.
That's exactly where I worked.
Was it really? Yeah. And they're just like, I can't do this. This isn't me. I don't want this. So, I mean, good for you to recognize that, right? So when you recognize that and you were having success and probably learned a lot of lessons from the first time, you were playing live poker, when did you say, and I think you just said 2015, but what made you actually act upon doing this YouTube / social media kind of personal brand vlog initiative that you started off on back then?
One of the trends that I was noticing in poker was just that it wasn't getting any easier. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't making that much money playing for a living as a primarily 2-5 players. So I was just kind of looking at everything, and I felt like I just needed another project that would be more fulfilling to work on. When you play poker for a living, you have nothing really to show for it as a cash game player. Mm-hmm. And that was something that bothered me. If I ever, for some reason, had to go back to the real world, I would put on my resume professional poker player and not really have anything else there, At least now I have a body of work. I can show people what my life is like. I really wanted to show my parents and, other people that I cared about that I wasn't just a degenerate gambler, that I knew what I was doing as a poker player. And I wanted them to kind of understand it. And I also wanted to develop a community of people, that watched the YouTube channel. We could bounce ideas back and forth off each other. But it didn't really turn out that way. It ended up me being more kind of a poker coach and me being in that role more than I thought.
Oh, really? Okay. So how did you adapt it then? Like, did you love coaching? And then how long did you continue that before you moved to like doing more of the entertainment / kind of coaching videos you're doing?
I just thought I would play hands and talk through my thought process. Yeah. And then people would respond in the comment section saying what they would do differently. I thought more pros would be watching, basically. Mm-hmm. And it ended up being a lot of recreational people that were watching. Maybe they were new to the game and were trying to just improve themselves. And then I would say it's, 99% plus recreational players.
Yep. That's amazing.
Not as much that I can learn from them.
Right. That's amazing, man. And it's like so here's a question too, because a lot of the folks that we've had on, when they talk about their entrepreneurial journeys or they talk about like something they're trying new, right? And yes, you have a YouTube channel, and yes, it's a in my mind, it absolutely is a business. Like, you've built your personal brand. You are hopefully monetizing what you're doing. You have created influence for yourself, which I'm sure is turning into ways to monetize other ways, right? So it is a job in a sense, but it's your own business. It's not just a YouTube channel, right? So when you decided like, hey, I got to do this, one of the hardest things for people is like taking that first step to actually go for something like that. So walk us through like what that was for you. What was that first step you took to go for it and kind of overcome fear if you had it?
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of fear. So I saw Andrew Neme's vlogs. I thought they were really, really cool. And it was just something that seemed like the perfect platform for me to get into. Another thing that I wanted to do was kind of just write like a poker television show or poker movie. But there's no way that I would ever have done that, just with all the resources you need to make that happen and to do a good job at it. So that was not really realistic. So I saw Andrew's video. I thought it was really cool. I actually knew Andrew a little bit from playing poker within that Red Rock, because he used to live out in Summerlin. So I was strongly considering doing my own video, but I was on the fence just because it seemed like a nerve-wracking thing putting yourself out there. And then I was talking to my parents about it, and it turned out my dad had a YouTube channel that I had no idea about. And it was, I think, maybe one video only on it, and it was him trapping a skunk in my backyard at my parents' house. It was the worst video of all time. So he traps the skunk. Nothing happens for about 8 minutes. It says on the title, "Skunk sprays me while I trap it," or something. So it's kind of an enticing title. It got 48,000 views. And so I was like, wow, this is the worst video I've ever seen, and it has this many views. Maybe I don't really need to be worried about putting out, bad content, because it seems like it's maybe a little easier to have success in this space than I originally thought. So that kind of pushed me over the edge and gave me the confidence to take a shot and put myself out there. So I uploaded my first video, and then I think it only had like 10 views or something after the first hour. And I wasn't even sure that I wanted anybody to watch it at that point. I strongly considered just taking it down, but I didn't, and I'm really glad that I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Over 200,000 subscribers now. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, right. Just crossed the 200,000 mark a couple days ago.
So here's the thing: like anyone that's grown any type of business or any type of initiative, that is not easy. That takes a ton of hard work and commitment and dedication and connection with your customers or fans, right? It just, you don't get there by just like kind of half-assing it. So at what point did you realize, okay, this is something I need to dedicate a ton of time to and be really serious about growing this and give it everything I have and build my personal brand? Like, was there a moment when that happened, or did it just naturally kind of turn into that?
I honestly hate the idea of like growing a personal brand, and that whole kind of talk. Like, people always talk about it as if like it's all a marketing thing and stuff. And I get it, but for me, like, that's not, I had no idea how many people were going to watch at all in the beginning. I thought maybe I'd have like a couple hundred subscribers or something like that. I didn't anticipate it growing into a big thing, because there was no one that was doing this that was really popular at the time. Mm-hmm. So I did it because I really enjoyed it. So I just naturally put in a ton of time. I loved like the interaction back and forth between people who were watching, and I would go film a session, and then I would play. And sorry, I wouldn't play. I would work like 20 to 25 hours straight on a video. I was so excited to make every video, and I would work all night and just to get it out as soon as possible. Now it's different. Now I'm not as enthusiastic about working on videos, because it feels more like a job now. Mm-hmm. But back then it was just like purely just because I loved it, and we didn't know how long it would last. I mean, there were guys like Sean McCormick out there who weren't too happy with.
Get him, Brad. Get him.
And yeah, I mean, now we've kind of come full circle, and Sean has said that we can work things out if we want to film out there, and we'll put out signs and stuff, and that's great. But in the beginning, I thought it was going to be a very short-lived project. So I had no idea that I'd be able to make any significant amount of money doing this. I'm really glad that it it does make money for me now. But yeah, man, in the beginning, it was I just loved doing it and would work as hard as I could. And it wasn't like a conscious thing where I'm like, oh, this is going to help me develop my name in poker. And, I didn't think anyone would really pay that much attention.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think there are a lot of people that lead with trying to build like their brand name up, whether it's the company or this their personal brand, right? And like I always advise against that, because people can tell if it's not authentic, right? People can tell if it's forced. And anybody we've had on the show, or anybody that you might call a poker influencer, the vast majority of people you might call a poker influencer in our industry, like they just worked hard to build something they were passionate about. People took notice, and then it became bigger than themselves, right? Even Helmuth, when we had Helmuth on, he was talking about that. He just did his thing, but he was at least smart enough to realize, okay, I've got this notoriety now. And he did things to build his personal brand, like from a visual standpoint, but it was the results and success that made him who he is, not forcing it down people's throats. And I think that's a really important thing for people to hear, that it's like, hey, look, put in the work to do what you love. And if it grows into something, you will naturally maybe get some of that notoriety and influence. But if you try and force it, it typically doesn't work out.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's just a dangerous thing if you get into content creation for money or to be, well known or whatever. For one thing, it was like 2 years before I started making any money that was significant on it. I basically did thousands of hours of work for free up to that point.
I understand. I've been there in different ways, man. So, all right. So you brought up mugs, right? You brought up mugs, and I think many people will remember that it was a new thing at casinos and poker rooms, and some poker rooms were wide open to doing it. Some had to be cautious because of their parent companies. Some operators opened their arms and said, let's do it. Some had to go through politics internally before they got it done, right? So, and you also mentioned that, Aria and where Sean works is trying to get these things to happen now that Sean fought the battle internally to be able to make that happen. So tell us about what started this whole thing, because I know you're the co-creator with Andrew. We had Andrew on the Faded Spade podcast. He shared a little bit about it, but when and how did this come about with the whole poker mugs kind of initiative and what I would just call business now?
Sure. Andrew had the idea very early on. I remember he had maybe around 45,000 subscribers at that point. He just blew up very quickly. And I only had about 7,000, but he thought it'd be a good idea for us to partner up. And we reached out to several different properties, and for a variety of different reasons, it wasn't worth it really for them to take the risk on what we were doing. No one really knew how gaming was going to react to what we were doing, I think, in the beginning. And a lot of the big companies like the MGMs and, the publicly traded companies, they had a lot more to lose potentially by letting us film than they had to gain, especially at that time. I mean, we weren't really getting that many views. So the marketing value just didn't outweigh the risk essentially at that point. And it was early on. People didn't really know us or necessarily trust us with what we were filming and what we would be showing, how we would be highlighting the casino, whether we would say anything bad about them, all that stuff. So it wasn't until, I think June of 2017, I think that was the first Meetup game during the World Series. And went to the Mirage. That's kind of a smaller room. It's still an MGM property, but they were looking to get as many people inside the poker room as possible. I don't know if we told them we'd be filming. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. I kind of forget.
Misremember. You misremember. You're just not entirely sure. It's better to ask for forgiveness, right?
Right. I mean, there were a lot of properties that we dealt with, especially early on, where they're just like, just don't tell us either way what you're doing. So it worked out really well. I think we had 3 tables and we just had a blast. We got pretty drunk that night. I mean, we got really drunk that night. It was until we played and hung out until 5 a.m. and just had a blast. Decided to keep doing it. And we did the Meetup games for free to different properties for a very long time. And we just kind of needed to have a proof of concept. And then the Westgate got on board and became kind of our home for meetup games. They had a very small room. It's 6 tables, and no one really knew about poker there. So they were looking for all the marketing that they could get. They went through all the proper channels, got gaming on board. It turns out if we just put signs basically out that say we're filming, and by you being here, it gives your consent to be filmed and photographed. That was really the way we got around it. Now it's grown to something huge. We've probably done meetup games in 15 different states and 2 countries, and we're just having a blast. So as soon as everything kind of clears up, we're going to be on the meetup game grind again.
So Sean,
Yeah.
When's the Aria game happening? Let's do this.
Let's worry about opening the doors first, which is going to be a massive project in itself.
3 months after, at least 3 months after.
Do you know how hard it is to open a casino? Do you know how hard it is to open a city of casinos? Let's work on that first. But circling back a little bit, I am one to always admit in my career and always eat crow where needed to. And I'll be honest, I had a lot of reservations in the beginning, even though I was kind of hypocritical about my reservations because I was having reservations working with my parent company and my company and everything. But at the same time, I'm like the poker room manager director that travels to all the fun meetup, spots. I got to run it up. I got to run good. I played in one of your actual meetup games, and I've done all of them. But I'm more guarded in my home base. I have been up until the last year or so, and I have to thank you and Andrew for all the work you've put in, because it's not just poker. I'm going to tell you now that's come kind of like 180 on this this whole topic of filming in casinos and getting engagement. That's like the big word now, engagement. We have casinos now, Stratosphere before the Strat now, before they just closed, started putting little signage on their tables on the felt that said, hey, at blackjack games, hey, take a picture and hashtag the Strat and all this, and everybody's getting on board with it. So, if the pit gets on board with it, it's even more so for poker because, again, it's very easy I shouldn't say it's very easy because it hasn't been, but it's easier to film in poker just saying, hey, we're going to use your likeness, your image, whatever is going to be used in this area. It's even harder in the pit. Obviously, the anonymity of a player is always kept. You don't want people filming people playing slots or filming people throwing dice for a lot of reasons. But in the poker world, we just say, hey, we put the sign up, and if you don't want to be it, we'll table transfer you. And, I know I've had some people come in and try to do games, set up games, stuff like that, and people didn't like it. We transferred them to other games and stuff like that. So, again, kudos to you guys for not only putting in the work, but really like driving it home and making us realize that this is a value for not only just you, but also a huge value to the casinos.
Love it. What's it like hearing something like that from Sean or from other poker room operators who you have worked with for the mugs?
It's great. Obviously, it's a huge. Sean is probably, if not the most prevalent tweeter in terms of like poker room operators. He's got to be top 5. So it's good to have him on board, especially with like such an awesome property like Aria. The thing is, I think how we got to this question was when are we going to be doing the meetup games at Aria? Mm-hmm. And with something like that, we don't really offer as much value to the Arias and the big properties, just because people are going to be coming into Aria almost no matter what. And they're going to not have enough tables that are open for us to fill up necessarily. There's going to be huge wait lists because I guarantee you hundreds of people would love to do a meetup game at Aria, but there's just not enough space. So we'd have to figure out a way to get over that hurdle.
Hey, I got it. Let's just do it earlier in the day. Hey, libations 24 hours in Vegas, so we're good on people getting drunk if they want to. Let's just do it early in the day. And if I have an 11 a.m. tournament that day, let's do it at 3 or 4. And I'll cancel the nightly. I'll tell you right now, I will cancel the nightly for your meetup games. So that's additional 5 or 6 tables for your meetup game. And you know what? Let's do it as soon as all this is down. I mean, we can't do it day one, but let's start talking about it and get this moving. It'll be good for you. It'll be good for us. It'll be good for the community to get this resurgence, something that we can show, videotaping, you and me, like setting things up, and let's make a whole thing out of it. Why not?
I'm in. We'll have to negotiate a little bit, but
you got it. You got it.
Other than that, I'm in, and I'm sure Andrew is down as well.
My comp pen's a little dry right now, but as soon as we open, I think I'll be okay.
My only request is that you use the Aria Faded Spade cards. That's my only request. That's it.
I'll think about it. I'll think about it.
How easy is it to get cards approved by gaming and stuff? I know that's got to be at least somewhat of a process, right?
In most states it is, but Sean already has his Aria Faded Spade cards, so they could put him right.
Okay. Nevada is the Wild West when it comes to gaming approvals, and I don't want gaming listening and thinking we need to drop the hammer on us. But
sure.
No, Nevada is we're very lucky here. Getting new cards, and it's actually harder to get it approved by my parent company to order than it is to get GCB to say, yeah, you can use those cards. It's GC actually with cards, as long as I'm protecting them, locking them up, they're pretty much good with, as long as they don't look ridiculous.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So if you wanted to use your own cards for the event, or even do a co-branding thing where Faded Spade did a mug thing, like, a week notice, I could get it done easily.
That'd be pretty interesting to partner up that way. Yeah. With our own mugs, branded Faded Spade cards. That'd be cool.
Oh man, all the
and then you could give them out. You could. And obviously Tom's excited because there could be new operators using his cards. But honestly, you could get the word out and get players more involved with mugs and also with Faded Spade. And it sounds like that'd be a cool opportunity, and I'd love to be on board for that too.
Very, very good idea.
All right, away from the marketing.
Now back to Brad, for God's sakes.
Hey, we're all selling here. We're all selling. It's not just me, buddy.
I mean, we successfully plugged all of our businesses here.
This will not be the clip, I promise. This will not be the clip that we use to promote it. All right, so where the hell was I? Okay, so actually I do want to talk about the business side of this, though, because I think it's important, right? And we didn't get too much into the business side with Andrew, right? But let's talk about mugs as a business, because I know when you guys go to different poker rooms, you have done a great job filling up tables, right? And there is a cost benefit analysis that can be done for that. Obviously, any poker room, right? Their average amount of tables full, average amount of players versus who's going to come in for the night with you guys, and there's going to be a break-even point, and yada yada yada. Whether it's cash games or tournaments. I know a little bit about this, Brad, because I've talked to Andrew about it. I know him a little bit more. And there are Faded Spade card customers who I'm talking to about, look, you guys have got to do this. Not asking for anything from you guys, just because I think it's right for the card room and I think what you guys are delivering. But what I understand is you guys deliver a lot more than just the people showing up. You guys actually produce and edit video productions of the time there that then has really an evergreen shelf life that's then promoted. So talk to us about what you offer outside of just, the people coming in because of your followings. You produce some other great things that poker rooms will benefit from.
Yeah. So leading up to any event, we're going to promote it across all social media platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're obviously promoting them on videos leading up to the events as well, which are going to get hundreds of thousands of views. And then we create a video dedicated to highlighting the good things about the poker room and the night and stuff. So our goal is always make the casino that we're working with look good. Otherwise, we're going to get shut down pretty quickly if we don't. But usually that's pretty easy. I mean, we go to places that we like going to. I mean, we're at Gardens Casino now. We had pretty much our pick of whichever casino we wanted to be doing ongoing meetup games with in Los Angeles. And now we have an exclusivity deal with Gardens. So we're there once a month. And once this all clears up, we're going to be going back out there once a month, hopefully. And yeah, I mean, these videos get a couple 100,000 views. People are on the property having fun experiences, fun memories that they want to they want to replicate. So they want to go back to the properties. And then after we hang out at the bar and have a ton of drinks, you know, some people kind of go their own way and play the table games. And so the properties benefit in that way too, to just get more feet in the door and more people gambling in general, I guess.
There you go. So why don't we pause here for a minute, and why don't you let people know, whether it's a poker room operator or just, you know, folks like me, Sean, and every other recreational poker player out there, where can they connect with you on your social media outlets? And then also, how can poker rooms get in touch with you for mugs?
So you can follow me on Instagram. My handle is Brad Owen 1. So apparently there were some other Brad Owens for me. On Twitter, I'm the Brad Owen. And then YouTube, if you just search Brad Owen Poker, should be able to find me on there. As far as casino operators go, they can get in touch with me. I'm really good at social media, trying to respond to everybody. So I guess tweeting at me or DMing me on Twitter is the best way to get in touch.
Okay, awesome. Hey, that's how we got in touch for this podcast, right? Yep. And I'm really glad you wanted to come on, man. I want to be conscious of the time, right? So maybe we'll take another, 10 minutes or so to go through some of this. So,
sure. So
you've built this
quarantine time, man. I've got nothing to do.
We'll hang out, right? Sean, you got some time? Let's hang out and keep chatting.
We got time.
Maybe we'll have Brad tell some stories from a couple mugs once we get through the journey. So maybe start thinking about some of those, Brad. But all right, you've built this online following. You've got all these subscribers. You've got a fan base. You started Mugs, which is a business that I think will continue to grow. I mean, it's probably going to be able to scale as much as you and Andrew can travel, right? Until you figure
out kind of the challenging part, is to figure out how we can grow as a business and how we can. It's very difficult to scale when you have to physically be present and physically be putting in the hours editing all the videos, and it's really tough to delegate anything as far as creating the videos go.
Yeah, I bet. So what's your mindset at? Like, what ideas do you have for potentially trying to scale? Have you guys talked about it, or is it just like, let's just see where this goes type thing?
Yeah, we definitely talked about it. I think doing some kind of a tournament series makes sense, where we can kind of promote these tournaments across different casinos, and maybe one of us will go, maybe both of us will go to these different series, have a point system, and have some kind of tournament series championship in Las Vegas. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be a great idea too. And the other thing, maybe from a poker operator standpoint, that I just thought about, because we talked about this on our re-entry roundtable with Savage and Jeremy and Berkey and Sean. And one thing that happens or doesn't happen as much as often when people bust from tournaments is that they go play cash games, right? That doesn't happen as often as possible. So if you're able to run a tournament like this, that then people are going to bust and stay in that poker room or casino and continue to play cash games, that's just a win-win for everybody. Yeah. So that's a really good idea. Okay, good deal. All right. So think back to all the mugs you've had, man. Like, were there any really cool, funny stories you want to share with the audience?
Let's see. I mean, I'm trying to think of like specific ones, but maybe something that people don't really know that's kind of funny is that Andrew is famous for doing Irish exits. You know what those are?
I don't. I've heard the phrase, but I don't know what it is. I'll be the guy.
I believe this already before you even tell it. I totally see Andrew doing it.
All right, so let him know. Hear the Irish exit.
Early on, I mean, we would just have so much fun with these meetup games, and we'd be drinking a lot. And so we've had to consciously, because Andrew and I both enjoy drinking, and it's just fun. People, buy us beers and buy us shots, and maybe it's someone's birthday at the meetup game, and so we want to celebrate with them. And so we have to consciously kind of drink less now. But anyway, early on, Andrew would get pretty hammered, and so would I. But Andrew would just leave without saying anything to anybody. So that's what an Irish exit is. And so it would take us a long time to catch on. It'd be like, Andrew's been in the bathroom for like a very long time. And sometimes he would even come back like way later. He would just go off and play slots or play roulette or something like that, and then just come back and be like, where were you, man? and then sometimes we don't see them at all.
Oh, brutal. So I just learned also I have definitely pulled an Irish exit a couple times and not known it, but
Okay.
That's awesome, man. So how did it feel when you got done with your Maryland Live game, which I think is still your biggest mug to date? Is that right? So tell people about that experience at Maryland Live and what it was like for you and Andrew afterwards.
I think the first time we were at Maryland Live, so we've been there twice or 3 times now. The first one was the most surprising because we didn't realize how big it was going to be. And we had 23 additional tables of 2-5 brought into Maryland Live, which has, I think, around 50 tables. And it was on a Tuesday night. So we picked the most dead time we could possibly pick. And just everybody showed up. We didn't realize how close it was to so many giant metropolitan areas. People drove in from all over. We had people fly in from Wisconsin and various other states for it. It was our first ever East Coast meetup game. And it was just nuts. So when that happens, we try and play with everybody at least once. So either Andrew or myself. And I think that was probably our longest meetup game just because we had to get around all the tables. We made it to 18 out of 23 because some broke before we could get to them. But that was a blast, man. That was really, really cool. That was the first time I think that the meetup games, it just became apparent to me like how big it had become.
That's so cool, man. Well, congrats on all the success, brother. You have built your YouTube business. You are building your mug business. Anything else you got going on that I don't even know about that you want to share on the podcast?
Well, we talked about that poker cat wrap. I think that's probably one of my favorite things to put out. I mean, it's such a dumb idea, but I got so many people involved in it to make cameos that that part's going to be pretty great.
Okay. We will not spoil it. I will not ask for more info. This will come out after that that launches anyway. So we will look out, at least Sean and I, in the meantime, we'll look out for the cat wrap video. It's awesome. I love it. All right, man. I also noticed you actually have like a kind of like a documentary that 888 Poker did regarding your poker vlog. So tell us about that and where can people find that?
Yeah, that's something that I think is one of the coolest projects that I've been a part of. I haven't really gone into too much detail about my life as a poker player, except for kind of recently with that documentary and on a couple podcasts recently. But they just did a great job. They did a great job kind of just going through my story. It's only 5 or 6 minutes long. And I couldn't have done that well had I just been working on that on my own. But we filmed that when I was in Spain, right before everything went down. So that was like really fortunate to get that trip in. That was early February. And now, Spain is one of the hardest hit countries. So, but yeah, you can find that out. You can find that on 888 Poker's YouTube channel. They have 700 or 800 videos. Definitely worth checking out if any of the listeners or viewers have some extra time and need some more poker content in their lives.
There you go, man. We all need more content in our lives right now, buddy. More entertainment. Hopefully stay away from the negative content, focus on the positive oriented content, of which, Brad, your vlogs are always positive and definitely focus on the right side of the business and your play. Even when you're going through your own struggles, I think your transparency is something that endears people to you. So kudos on the success, man. The last question from my standpoint, and then we'll see if you have anything else you want to add to, Brad, or Poker Boss. All right, Brad. So as we wrap this thing up, kind of a deep question. Throughout this whole journey of yours, right? From when you had the first 10 viewers of your vlog to now 200,000 subscribers to now meetup games with 20 plus tables. When you look back on this whole journey, what's the most important thing you learned about yourself?
Wow, that is a good question. You might have to edit out me tanking here. The most important thing I've learned about myself. I think the thing that surprised me about myself is how hard I am, how much of a hard worker I am, like when I'm really passionate about something. I think that's been surprising. I mentioned earlier that I was willing to put in, 20 to 25 hours straight of editing. And that's something that surprised me. I think that's the biggest thing. And also I've just developed like a lot more self-confidence throughout this whole process. I wasn't a very confident person growing up, and still to this day, I'm pretty shy and reserved and kind of an introvert, but it's been so cool to see how many people have been affected positively from the poker vlogs, not just me, but from a lot of other content creators. And I feel like I'm not really completely answering your question, but
I think it's an awesome answer.
That's as good as I've got right now.
It's okay. You still had 3 seconds to go. What? I called the clock on him. I called the clock. The second it just went off. I called the clock on him. Now we don't have to edit it out. You did well. You did well.
You know why it's an awesome answer? Because it's genuine, and that's why 100%. I don't tell people I asked that. And there have been some podcasts like Joey's podcast where we got like so deep into personal stuff, obviously, and we've scratched the surface here, right? And but I think that's important for people to hear, because there are a lot of people, going through trying to achieve a vision for their life or things like that. And it's hard, and it's so hard. And it's like, you're going to learn a lot of things about yourself that maybe you didn't know along the way. Right.
Okay. I've got a good answer now. I think how honest I am willing to be, and to just put that out to the world. I've talked about a lot of embarrassing things and difficult moments. I've gone through my biggest downswing while filming everything. And that was something. I've made a ton of terrible poker plays and put them on the vlogs. I feel like the less I want to video something and document it and put it out there, I feel like the more important it is. So if I don't, then I'll just have like a huge sense of guilt. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something. I think that viewers resonate with that. I think that they appreciate that I'm willing to be vulnerable, and I think it just works out the best, regardless of how little I want to talk about certain topics.
Amen, brother. Just like you're right. We got a beautiful compliment from Angelica Hale, the VP of Global Tour Management for the World Poker Tour, when she was on, and I didn't see it coming. And she was just like, "I love your podcast because it's authentic and genuine." And I didn't even realize like that was a thing. You know what I mean? And I think that is why you have 200,000 subscribers, 400,000 views on some videos, and why all these people want to come spend time with you and play with you during your mugs. It's because you put yourself out there in a way where people can relate to you. And it's because of that genuineness and that authenticity that I think you have skyrocketed, in your career. So good, man. It's cool that you realize that, because I don't think a lot of people do. So on that note, Poker Boss, any wrap up questions or segments for Brad, or are we going to call this thing a day?
No, I just I'll just piggybacking a little bit on what you said. It is really hard to find genuine people in our industry sometimes, and I think people misconstrue getting an edge with being non-authentic or even flat out lying to people. And as someone in operations, sometimes I have to take that into account, and that's why in the beginning, when you and Andrew and other vloggers brought me this idea of doing, like filming games and stuff like that, I had to be reserved. You could probably imagine how many people bring me a different idea per week. Like people drop hey, I got the new greatest game. I got the new greatest way for you to, I've reinvented how to look at hole cards. I've reinvented how to do this and everything. And it's like, I have to take it with a grain of salt. You've put in the work, and, authenticity is, I think, the big word that you can put. That's one of the things you can really hold your head high about, that you are authentic and you keep it real, which is really hard to find. And to that, I'm going to keep it real. Tom knows where I'm going with this. I make something every segment, so it's not going to change it. But our sign does says, "Hey, we filming here."
Well done.
We filming here. That's my new signage. That's all it's going to say. Hey, we filming here. So
please get a picture of that, Brad.
Keep that, Sean, for the meetup game that we do. As soon as all this is over, we're gonna hold you to that commitment.
You got it.
I love it. All right, ladies and gents. So we'll be respectful of everybody's time. We're going to close this out. Again, be sure to check out at the Brad Owen on Twitter. Get to his YouTube page with his name. If you haven't watched any of his vlogs, please do so. You'll learn a lot about poker, but also Brad, and also you'll be entertained, even if you have no idea what's going on from a poker standpoint. But Brad, wish you nothing but success once we get back into the live business with mugs. Sounds like you're adapting your YouTube content for kind of today's world with this new cat rap video. So can't wait to see that. And we're going to say sayonara from the Faded Spade Podcast. Stay safe. Have fun with your friends and family. And we will catch you next time. Brad, thank you for the time, man.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Appreciate it.